We're happening.
Okay, welcome back, Screamers, to the first in a series about the works of David Gordon Green.
DGG.
D-double-G. That's what I've been calling him as well. I don't really have a fancy title for this, or even a clever title. None of them are fancy. I'm the only one who thinks they're clever to begin with. Regardless, today we're going to look at his first two films, George Washington and All the Real Girls. We're also going to look at the Florence Pugh vehicle,
New
A
Pew.
Good Person. It's New Pew, Pew Pew. We are the Pughletariat. We were going to try and do a little bit more, but we realized that we're just not that good. Look, this podcast is a work in progress, and as are we,
right.
as
Everyone
human
is,
beings. Anyway, look, happy Thursday, Jason. How are you doing on this?
Yeah, look, I'm doing great. I don't know why I qualified it with like that big sigh and exasperated breath out. No, I'm doing fine. I've seen some movies recently, and not all of them have been good. So I'm just going to live with that thing that happens.
This
it's
is
okay.
This is a thing that I have a question for you. It's not really a serious question, but it's still a question. I'm not sure how it came up, but I wanted to ask you: do you see me more as a Troy from Reality Bites or as a Paul from All the Real Girls?
Look, I don't see Troy as being particularly poetic. I mean, but I also see kind of Paul as being like a womanizing idiot savant kind of like, but also, man, that's a hard line to draw.
Or am I a kind of confluence of both?
Yeah, I think yes. You're like the chocolate vanilla swirl that is Troy and Paul. Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot. You may need to work on your rap skills a little bit, but outside of that, I mean, yeah, no, I like it.
Okay.
It's of actors that don't. And let me just say this: that, from a real life perspective, not getting your due, I'm 100% on board with that as well. I mean, like, I think you should be celebrated just like Elaine May, not like Elaine May, but in the same sense, in the same tone. You should be more celebrated than what you are.
So, was this a reference to Paul Schneider as well, not being?
Oh yeah, as a weird like. Because Deschanel blows up after All the Real Girls. She goes right into. Granted, that wasn't what blew her up, but she went right into Elf. She's a nepo baby too, so it's not like she's. I mean, she was probably on the cusp anyway, or was going to hit that track. Did she do Almost Famous before All the Real Girls? She had to have, right? I mean, Almost Famous would have been 97, 96.
Yeah, because All the Real Girls was 2003.
Well, yeah. So,
because isn't that kind of where they? I mean, we'll get into this more.
Sure.
But, isn't that part of where they saw her and thought, okay, she might work?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But Paul Schneider, am I saying that's his last name, right? Is it Schneider?
I believe so. Yeah. That's what I've been calling him. So if it's like Jones or something,
it sounds like he's also supposed to be on Dukes of Hazzard. Which is why it's kind of throwing me off. Like he never kind of rose to that Ed Burns type indie darling kind of handsome but not handsome man kind of that we were really championing that in that time frame. I know he went on to do Parks and Rec and he's done other things, but it's one of those
Jane
things.
Campion film, Bright Star.
True. So I mean, like it's not like he hasn't had a career.
Ed Burns doesn't have that.
Good point. Touche. But I don't think neither one of them are a household name. You might recognize Ed Burns because he did Saving Private Ryan
and Will and Grace.
Did he really? I was not a huge.
He was on he played Grace's boyfriend. Look, I like
Deborah Messing. I'm not going to lie.
Right. And, but I mean, I had girlfriends who would watch that show.
Look at you, humble bragging about having girlfriends.
Notice plural.
We're learning a lot about Brian. Maybe you were celebrated enough. I don't know.
Well, yeah. We'll get into that too, I think, as we get in there. So look, I don't really have much more of like a segue.
So are we flipping coins to go directly into D-double-G, or are we going to go?
No, I
let's
think let's get a good person out of the way, and
yes, please.
I mean, well, right, because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this film because, frankly, I don't think it deserves a whole lot of our time. Definitely not my 2 fucking hours that I spent watching this.
Wake up with the sun in the morning, go to sleep with the moon at night.
For the model train enthusiast, we lord over a world where the neighbors are always kind, the lovers always end up together.
Allison, every memory I cherish has you in it. I love you.
And the trains always take you to the far-off places you always swore you'd go. In life, of course, nothing is nearly as neat and tidy.
Aren't you engaged to Nathan Adams?
I was, yeah.
I heard what happened to you, the accident.
The woman that died was about to be my sister-in-law.
Time keeps on coming.
Hi, Dan. I'm worried about you.
I want my life back. I want my child back.
I need help.
I know.
Allison, don't run away now because of me.
There are thousands of meetings. I'll find another one.
Well, somehow you found your way to this one. Come on.
Stare into space.
Lately, so much of my life has been out of control. I just caught my granddaughter having sex with a boy who looked like a man.
Hey, Belinda, I found this fool in bed with my Ryan.
She said she was 18 online.
You're a fuck boy. He's a fuck boy. That's what the kids call them. Get out of our neighborhood, fuck boy.
Okay.
What the hell did you do to your hair?
It's Makeover Monday.
It's Friday.
Oh. This is incredible.
My wife used to hang out with me down here. She liked the whistle.
I don't know how to do this.
Takes work. I got one of those audio books on how to talk to a teen.
How's that working out?
I am so not going to talk about sex with my grandfather.
Really? Because I just love this shit. I'm in way over my head.
I was thinking if we found like a craft that we like, we could be on Shark Tank. We'll be like, hey, sharks. No. I knew you would like that idea.
And I'm going to say this.
As someone who would like literally watch Florence Pugh do anything.
I know. That's the thing.
Like in a remake of Mama's Family.
Right. I sent you a text when I'm watching this, and I said a good person can fuck all the way off. And I mean this, and I think this is where part of my sort of personal take on this film is part of my like personal history is going to come out in my take on this film. Regardless of that, it's just not good. Right. So
before we get into it,
yeah.
How do we feel about Garden State?
So, okay. I think that when I first saw Garden State, because it comes out about a year after All the Real Girls, actually. Mm-hmm. When I first saw Garden State, I thought, oh, this is cute, this is fun, this is whimsical, I know these people. I remember in the theater, I'm watching this film and listening to the soundtrack and going, I own all of these records. I own all of this music. And so it felt, I think, of a time, those two things felt sort of a piece for me. Looking back, I see the sort of problematic portrayal of Natalie Portman's character, which again is going to come up when we talk about All the Real Girls. So there's that. I can't rewatch it. It just, I'm like, I roll my eyes at it when I watch it now. And it's not that I'm angry or upset with it. I'm just kind of like, okay. I see what you're so cute and precious.
So my theory is that Garden State is to movies as Hootie and the Blowfish is to music.
Another band that we listened to in high school and I can't listen to today.
Right. You listen to it the first time and you're like, all right, there's
something here.
Yeah, there's some bangers on here. I can tap my toes. This is not so, yeah. And then as you start to peel away the layers of the onion, it just all falls apart. And which is not to say that if Let Her Cry comes on the radio, I might not turn it up and sing along, but I'm going to roll 100%. The windows up.
Yes, I'm not going to let anyone else know what I'm singing along to or hear the song that's on the radio.
But yeah, it to me, I have the same thing. I actually, which is stupid way to say it, but I saw Garden State in the theater with Braff in the theater. So I saw it like at an early screening, and he was there answering
You guys were
questions.
next to him. You were sitting next to each other. Did you
What's
share
up, Z-Man?
popcorn? Did you like have a moment where like you both reached into the popcorn bucket at the same time? You sort of lingered a little too long,
It
but
was more
also
of a diner type situation. Mickey working him, but it was a bet from all my friends. I had to. Will Zach Braff touch my penis?
look, we will find the line and we will step over it.
So, and obviously, when you do go to those types of screenings, you have a tendency to be a little bit more forgiving, and obviously, you get to hear from. I will say that in that Q&A session, Braff doesn't come off as being ridiculously insightful. Garden State is a time capsule of his experiences as a young actor, right? And hearing stories. It's not like Swingers. It's not like a movie that it has a personal connection or this is a guy who has been on a successful sitcom, now going back and trying to dip his toe into making films, and then culling from stories from somebody else. Right, on its surface, it's all fine. Like I said, don't peel back the layers. And the soundtrack does most of the heavy lifting, and all the emotional cues of Garden State happen because and Portman's really, really good in that movie. It's just and so that I think you tend to then
overlook the fact of how she's being portrayed,
right,
as this kind of angelic savior type figure who has no real characteristic traits other than just, oh, look, she's quirky and wears a funny hat. Right. I mean, I know it's a helmet, but but that's it. And she's there not to. And again, I want to come back to this when we talk about all the real girls. I know I've said that 7 times already, but she really is there just to make this guy like look good or prop him up or save him. There's nothing else there. He doesn't do any of the work himself, right? She does it all kind of for him, and so.
But that same thread for Garden State, which is this is an amalgam of all the stories that he's heard throughout his time as a young actor and pulling from other things that goes tenfold. He's gotten so much worse with The Good Person. You want to give us a rundown of what it's all about?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Well, no. I mean, I think that. Well, I mean, this is a story about Allison, played by Florence Pugh. She's engaged to be married. Things are fine. She is with her soon-to-be sister-in-law and her sister-in-law's husband. They're going wedding dress shopping. She checks her Maps app, and they get in a car accident.
Technically, she's checking to see if they can buy tickets to a show.
No, she's trying to get them there faster.
Oh, okay.
So because they're going to the couple are going to go to a theater after they're done, and she's like, you know what? I think I can get us there like sooner. And she pulls up the Maps app. Don't look.
So you were paying attention.
I was paying attention. Unfortunately, they get into a car crash. The 2 passengers die. She is badly injured. A year later, she's addicted to Oxy, living with her mother. She split up with her fiance, and from there, the film sort of becomes a redemptive journey, quote unquote redemptive journey arc, where she then forms an unlikely relationship with Morgan Freeman, who would have been her father-in-law, who's estranged from her former fiance.
For reasons we get into later, right?
Right.
Because he was abusive. I don't know why I'm not holding that back. He was abusive to his son.
Because he's an alcoholic.
Right? And he caused his deafness in one of his ears from a night of beating.
Right.
And he's also taking care of the daughter of the parents who were killed in the car crash and having trouble doing that because she's a 16-year-old girl who's now an orphan, essentially.
Yeah, right. I mean, she's a 16-year-old girl who's been through a traumatic incident like everyone in this film. And why would we expect them to be okay after a year?
This is
one of the things that
right. And like for someone who needs a redemptive arc, or doesn't need a redemptive arc in this case, right? I mean, like she had a car accident. This is all of it is so like fucking on the nose and ridiculous. So Pugh, a couple of things through here. Like she starts off the story and she's a pharmaceutical rep. And so this is a nice little fuck you twist of comeuppance, I guess, so broadly and poorly. It's weird. It's like the film wanted to do something with that, but never really comes back to it.
But that's a theme throughout the film. It
absolutely.
wants to do something with something, and it just doesn't.
Yes, of course.
It's bad storytelling.
All of it. Like I wrote that it's like a story that was written by AI. It was like written by ChatGPT. It was not like there's nothing to it that has any sort of like, all of it has the trappings of a story, like you said, a redemptive arc story and a story about the perils of addiction. But in reality, I mean, like if you take a look at Pugh's character, she has way more problems than just oxy. She's undiagnosed depressive. She probably has PTSD. Like there's all kinds of things in here that
Everyone in this story does.
Right.
No, but I mean, it's all undiagnosed. That's what I mean. They're all depressed and all have PTSD and all are suffering from this stuff. And
we address it as a straightforward, addiction story where she has to come back and find her worth and has to, help someone else find their worth and help somebody else get over. And what really drove me insane about this movie was throughout the film, especially after the crash, Florence Pugh says multiple times, it wasn't my fault. It was the backhoe driver's fault. And we all know that she looked down at her phone. So this is going to be a big plot twist, apropos of absolutely fucking nothing. It is so stupidly done that, and it's just this like another. All it exists as is a character crash moment where she can then like have this realization that she's a piece of shit. And it doesn't make any sense to this story. This is not, again, for a story about addiction and something that happens during it. Like she wasn't addicted at that particular point in time. Right. She made a very, very small mistake. And now we're punishing her in a really, really bizarre way that is unwarranted. And no one in this story has any sort of common decency to to really care for this person.
Right.
It's so fucked up.
Right. Here's one thing I'll say. So she and her fiance split up at a certain point, and we find out that she leaves him. Right? She can't do it. And this I think I get. I understand this, right? She feels some kind of guilt, even if she keeps saying, right, that it was not my fault. I mean, how could you not, right? Even if you weren't driving, you're the only one who walked away. There's a kind of survivor's guilt there. That has to be really hard to then look at this man every day. And for him, too, it's got to be hard to look at her, to help her through this kind of recovery, knowing that these other two people who are there aren't there, and that affects. I mean, that's got to be really tough. So it's no surprise that they broke up, right, in whatever way. What is really surprising is the mother's constant enabling.
Right. Played by Molly Shannon.
Yeah, because it's not even, I mean, it is just one thing after the other. And we start off, we see the two of them sort of arguing about prescriptions. Right? She wants a new prescription. She's like, you can't have any when the doctor said no. We need to like stop, blah, blah, blah. Cut to like her then getting her a prescription. But then when she comes, this drove me insane, where Florence Pugh walks in and she's like, Mom, I need help. I need to go to rehab. I need to go to inpatient. She's like, we don't have insurance. We're not going to do that. And then she's like, well, look, Dad, because Molly Shannon's husband and Pugh's dad like left them. She goes, look, Dad was going to get me something for the wedding. Do you think he would pay? And she's like, I'm never talking to that man again. And I'm like, we could have solved this problem 17 times in the first half an hour of the fucking film. This is ridiculous. Right. It's just ridiculous.
Because she has her father's Rolex the entire time.
There's that too.
In a better movie, a better movie doesn't, I don't know, like focus on the bizarre 1-year addiction of Florence Pugh. They focus on a toxic mother-daughter relationship that led to a somewhat selfish and entitled life. We get glimpses of that where Pugh meets, and again, everyone in this fucking movie is such a fucking caricature of like, it's just, let's enter in random drug dealer. Let's enter in troubled teen. Let's enter in embittered, like old grizzled cop, Yeah. It's all just fucking, like I said, it is I don't know.
It's hackney, it's cliche.
Yeah, it's terrible. But a better movie then focuses on the relationship between Shannon and Pugh to determine how Pugh developed, and of course, I mean, her being responsible for her own actions, but having how, like, this whole idea that Pugh crumbles when she realizes that she was really at fault, which you get the impression that she always knew that in the first place. She was just lying to herself in order to get through. That this wouldn't come as some sort of great realization. Focusing on this ex-pharmaceutical rep being addicted to pills is I don't know. It's just baffling. It really is a bizarre film. And again, it doesn't really. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It doesn't really address any of the trappings of addiction at all. Like it doesn't know what to do with it. It feels like it doesn't have any idea like what really truly addiction is like.
Because it doesn't. But I want to go back just a second. She's being turned into sort of the anti-manic pixie dream girl, which then becomes just as bad or just problematic because all we're doing is tearing this woman down to nothing. For what reason?
Right.
So we're not really, I guess we're showing her hit rock bottom, even though, I mean, she didn't have to go through all that because she was looking for help anyway. But we're just gonna tear her down and make her feel like the biggest piece of shit ever, and we're gonna try to see her that way because she was looking at her Maps app, which
for 2 seconds.
Which, okay.
Right.
I mean, like, she could have been fucking changing the radio station. Right. No one would have been upset with that.
Or sneezed. Or right. I mean, it would have been anything.
It's such a stupid fucking thing. It's such a stupid plot device. Yeah. I mean, it could have been, it didn't even have to be anything. It could have just been a fucking accident. Because all you're doing is just destroying this woman for no apparent. I mean, I don't know why you would destroy a woman anyway. But I mean, you know what I mean. There's no storytelling reason for it.
Right. Like any other, like, even competent movie would have had her been an addict beforehand. Yes. And not an addict or like a self-delusional addict. You know, I drink too much here. I'm okay. I can function on my pills. I live this selfish lifestyle and nothing is ever my fault. In order for her to be redeemed, she has to do something that requires redemption. She got into a car accident and so this is not even a story about how pharmaceuticals push oxy onto people, or that, I mean, it's like everybody that she meets, like you said, treats her like she is the lowest of the low. Her ex-friends treat her like the low. When she's just asking when she's asking for pills, it, like, you set her up in all of these scenarios, and this is just a woman who's begging to be forgiven because she can't really forgive herself because she's continually lying to herself. That's the fucking story. Help her get past trauma.
Yeah.
Like, why? You already have an alcoholic. You already have an alcoholic in Morgan Freeman. You can tell that story. And some sort of redemptive arc for him, who, at that point, his redemptive arc is that he fucking dies. And that's how we all forgive him, right? I mean, like, the better story is someone who needs to be forgiven. She meets up with Ryan, the daughter, and who needs to find an outlet to forgive so she can move on. That's the movie that you have here, and instead you tie it up in this. And the movie doesn't let her off the movie is just, again, it doesn't let her off the hook at all. It just keeps throwing her back into situation after situation where she has to defend herself. It doesn't make, man, it's fucking terrible. It is a terrible, terrible movie.
Yeah. So there's actually like three better movies in it, right? There's Pugh and her mother. There's Pugh and Ryan, the granddaughter. And then there's Pugh and her fiance working through that trauma. I mean, I'd watch that. I'd watch these two people sort of like going through this shit together, and then us watching that relationship devolve and break up because of that. That's sure, it's a sad, heartbreaking movie, but it's real, right? This is not real. Let's talk about how it deals with addiction, because boy, is it bad. So here's the thing. Morgan Freeman's character, Daniel, is supposedly 10 years sober, which is like weird time-wise because as he tells the story, it seems like he got sober well before then.
Right, yeah.
Here's the thing. No one sober for 10 years keeps a bottle of whiskey in their cabinet because that guy knows he's going to drink. It's fucking stupid. Look, Braff knows look, maybe he does. I don't know. But by this movie, he knows nothing about addiction, nothing about the process, nothing about going through the steps and going through these meetings. Allie, Florence Pugh, her character, goes to a meeting, right? On her own accord, goes to a meeting. Good for her. He's there. They see each other. She's going to run away, but he keeps her there. Okay, this is good, right? This is something that a person at that meeting, someone in the rooms would do, right? They would go, no, you need to be here, right? He says all the right things. But then later on, he's like, I fucking hate you.
Right.
And this makes no sense.
He constantly blames her for everything that happens. Like all of his drinking, he constantly blames her for all of his drinking.
Yeah,
which a guy who had been in the program for 10 years would not fucking do.
No, and I have to say, okay, so look, in full disclosure, right? I am 16 years clean and sober. Right? I mean, I have done everything, and this is why I get so. One reason I get so upset with this film is the way it treats this process and the way it treats addiction. I'm not a big fan of AA or NA, right? It's not a thing I necessarily subscribe to, but I know how it works. Here's the other thing. Zoe Lister-Jones, as a sponsor, would never let Morgan Freeman in her car with a bottle of booze. This is another reason why this movie just doesn't know what the fuck it's doing and just offends people who've gone through this. I mean, he's drunk, he gets in her car. She's not going for that. No sponsor, no group leader is letting that happen. You know, she might go take care of this stuff on her own because that is something. The answering phone calls, the sending texts, that happens, but that doesn't happen, right? I find it really, really, really bad. And then again, like the enabling by other people, all the things that she's trying to find ways to help people, and he keeps shutting her down. Right? She's like, look, let me talk to your granddaughter, right? Or here's advice. And he's just like, no, even though he knows that this is part of that recovery process. Right. And then like the rehab moment is in montage.
Right.
So we don't even see the actual growth. We don't see the recovery. We don't see her talking, and we don't see enough of the withdrawals. Right. It was pretty tame. Some like foot twitching and sweating, and you know.
There was one scene where she's lying on the bed sideways.
Yeah. No. Right.
In a tank top. Okay.
She checked herself into rehab like a night, like the next morning after. I mean, she wanted pills at this party and she got dope.
Right, she was doing crank. I mean, at this point, or something.
And she's doing heroin.
Yeah,
she's doing powdered heroin or some kind. I mean, so she's not in good shape. She's going to. It's going to be gross. Right. But we don't see any of that. We don't see her work through that. We see her sing a song at the piano that's coincidentally fortuitously there for her to sort of play and sing on.
Right.
But we don't see any real sort of group talk. I mean, I don't know that Clean and Sober is the best movie, but I think it treats this stuff a little more authentically than.
I can think of a dozen different movies that do it better than this. And like this movie, like the one scene that, it really truly lost me, and I was done from that point on, is the scene where Morgan Freeman catches Ryan, his granddaughter, in bed with an older man, and that older man ends up being not necessarily a drug dealer, but he's in the music business, and he's an enabler, blah blah blah. It's all fucking bullshit because it's like 6 characters in this movie that all come back and meet each other. Yeah, he forces him out the window, and then the next door neighbor is spraying him with the hose, calling him a fuckboy, and like that's supposed to be a moment of like brevity and like humor, and I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. This is the worst fucking film. Like everyone involved in this is tainted by this because that scene is so poorly done, and it's so ham-fisted that I'm like, what are you doing here? So now we've got a naked boy, in underwear, escaping a 2-story window because he's having sex with a younger girl, and that's the funny moment. That's the moment of lightness in your addiction. This movie should have been so much more serious. It should have been, again, 3 different movies. Morgan Freeman should have been an afterthought. This idea of like him being, again, like his character truly is the piece of shit. His character is the one who beat his son so severely that he lost hearing in one ear. But no, we're introduced to this kindly old man who does model trains and is raising his granddaughter and really can't do that well. And also, he has 2 lapses during the time and points a gun, almost murders a person.
Right.
And that's not dealt with. Like, again, there's not like that of consequence. But yet we're still focusing on Florence Pugh. And she has to do all of this by herself. At the end of it, like, no one helps her.
No,
which is a really fucked up message.
It's really messed up. I mean, this is something that I like made note of, was that it felt like it was Garden State for addicts.
Where no, absolutely, because all the trappings are there, right? It would be easy to sit here and watch this and go, okay, yeah, that was a good movie because everyone's happy at the end, and all the performances, there were performances by people that I like, and Morgan Freeman's voice is comforting, so I'm okay with this movie. I'm going to go on about my day. It is a piece of shit. As soon as you look at it any deeper than just watching it in the background, it is a piece of shit movie made by a piece of shit. And like the fucking audacity of that motherfucker with when the black comes up and it's like written and directed by Zach Braff. Go, fuck
Shut
you.
up. I know. Just. Well, I mean, God,
like the pompousness of that fucking title card or the end credits card.
And it wants to be so earnest. But again, there's no depth there. There's no gravitas. I actually thought that the only person who knew what film this should have been was Zoe Lister-Jones. She was the only one who seemed serious and kind of like, look, don't fuck around with this stuff.
Right.
Take this process seriously. Stop doing this. You have to be this way if you're going to be around me. I mean,
no. I'm just laughing at my. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm just laughing because this feels like a movie that now that Zach Braff and Florence Pugh have broken up, this feels like a movie that Braff wrote just to fuck with Pugh.
Or you know what it felt like to me was him going, I've written this really like excellent role for you, just for you. And she's like, okay, sure. And then she's like, fuck. Right. I feel like, look, this and. What was that other?
The Wonder?
No, the Olivia Wilde movie. The one that I can't remember the title of now. With Chris Pine.
Don't worry, darling.
Don't worry, darling.
I'm rubbing off on you.
I know. I feel like those were two roles where she's like, okay, all right. Like, friends came to her and said, hey, I got this for you. And she's like, yeah, cool. And then she's like, fuck, what am I doing here? Right? Like, what am I? Because there's a moment. This moment when Pugh comes again to Molly Shannon and she's like, I want to go to rehab. I want to go to inpatient. And then Molly Shannon's like, oh, no, we can't afford that, blah, blah, blah. And Pugh's like, look, I'm not myself. I don't know who I am anymore. And I'm like, there's a version of this film where she has me crying at that speech because there's something there and she can pull it off. And she's really good in that moment, but she's given like this little, just a sliver of a line and nothing else. I'm like, oh my God, that could have been cool.
And again, it's hinted at, like, and that line, that scene is better when Shannon is trying to hide her own addiction, which is clear that the film is trying to set her, or at least a better film is trying to set her up as a closet alcoholic as well, who's ignoring all of these things, and also doesn't want to see it in her daughter because she doesn't want to see it in herself.
Exactly.
That's the better movie here. And again, Braff has the fucking...
Wow. Was that just a like Brock Braff thing? I'm so upset with you right now.
You got me the Troy Paul thing. It's like I'm just now melding you with everybody we talk about.
No, yeah, this is terrible. And I just think it's really offensive. I think that I've been to meetings with pretty awful people, and they're not this bad. They're not as bad as like this Daniel guy. Anyway, I don't know.
Does Pugh does Pugh need a new agent? Is she just drawn to bad material? I think
it was a favor for her boyfriend.
And well, probably so. But we don't. Talking about the last three films we've talked about her in, which is The Wonder, this, and Don't Worry, Darling.
Yeah.
And again, I think A Good Person and The Wonder get good reviews because they're easy. They're just it's easy to give them good reviews, and it's difficult to look beyond the surface of these films. I wonder if she thinks they're good movies.
I don't know. But look, if she gets a new agent, I was going to say like, oh, we could be her agents, but she'd be in like one super weird art house films, and then like Italian semi-giallos. So it would just be like
right. Yeah, I don't need to run her.
I don't think she. Yeah. So anyway, I'm bored to death with this. So let's
kill it.
Let's argue about George Washington.
you want me to say? It's too late. Just don't say nothing. Can I kiss you one last time? My friend George said that he was going to live to be 100 years old. He said that he was going to be the president of the United States. I wanted to see him lead a parade and wave a flag on the 4th of July. Everyone thought he was crazy but me. When I look at my friends, I know there's goodness. I can look at their feet, or when I hold their hands, I pretend I can see the bones inside.
Your son is a hero, Mrs. Richardson.
My friend George, he told me that he could read God's mind. He told me he knew what God was going to create, who he was going to let die, and stuff like that.
All right, I'm going to let you say what this bullshit's about.
So I want to say a couple of things first. So this is David Gordon Green's first film, made in 2000. He'd made a couple short films before this. This is his first feature. He grew up in Richardson, Texas, went to UT in Austin, and then ended up at the University of North Carolina School for the Arts, where he was classmates with Paul Schneider and Danny McBride, who we'll meet later. They both worked on this film, on George Washington. All right, I'm keeping summaries brief for these two films because
because they are brief summaries.
Look, so the plot of George Washington is, well, there's not much plot really, but it is a fragmented, lyrically structured poem of a film. So a
limerick, maybe.
Look, sure. No, this is wait. Okay, I said to you earlier that I started watching this film and I was like, I understand why I didn't remember it very well. I remember seeing this. I told you, like, where I grew up, there were a couple small, like, artsy theaters, and they would play stuff like this. I remember going to see it, and I imagine I was kind of like, oh, okay, that was cool, and then, like, forgot about it forever. I started to rewatch it for this, and I stopped, like I said, about halfway through, about half an hour in or whatever, and I was like, okay, I think I understand why I don't remember it very well. I came back and rewatched it from the beginning and kind of fell in love with it. So I don't know if it was a mood thing, if it was just a different day. I don't know. But so anyway, the film follows kind of a group of friends between the ages of 10 and 13 and other loosely linked characters in this rural, rusted out kind of North Carolina town. It's seen and told mostly through the eyes and voiceover, kind of 12-year-old Nausea.
It's a good name for her.
God, she breaks up with Buddy as a 12-year-old and is interested in George, a kind of, in a way, eponymous character. Buddy is accidentally killed when some of the group are sort of playing in a bathroom. George eventually becomes an unlikely town hero after he saves a kid from drowning. There's more to this movie, and well, at least I'll get into it as we go.
You're going to skip over Buddy dying?
I said that.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
When they hid the body?
Boy, someone's not listening already. I said Buddy is accidentally killed when some from the group are playing in a bathroom. I even wrote this down so I could, like, anyway. So, look, again, there's more to this movie. We'll get into it as we go, shush. But summary and plot-wise, that's kind of it. Those are the main kind of through lines and within the vignettes. Because it's a vignette time movie. Shush, quiet. It's not a movie about plot. It's a movie about memory. It's a movie about regret. It's about being alive during a summer before childhood shifts into adolescence. That's all it's about. This is a serious film about childhood.
Oh my God!
A childhood on the cusp of like real teenage drama and teenageism.
If I'll give the movie anything, I think that it's very good at evoking those emotions.
Yeah.
So I think people that come to this add their own bullshit to it, And it's fun. It's like a fucking car commercial or a long-distance telephone commercial, which we don't have anymore, I get. But look, you watch grandma calling her her grandson on Christmas Eve because she can't get there on a flight. We're all going to feel that emotional gravitas. We're all going to realize that that was us at some point. You see young kids playing in a field, and you see young kids who are in love and at a city pool and fucking doing the Huck Finn bullshit. Yeah, you're going to bring you're going to bring your own bullshit to the fucking table and then think, man, that was a fucking great movie. If you actually watch this piece of shit, and I fucking hated this from the first time I saw it.
Oh, man.
But if you actually watch this piece of shit, you're going to realize there is fucking nothing there. And Gordon, D-Double-G can't get out of his own fucking way. So and I'll let you talk.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. Look. This is kind of an interesting date because we usually agree pretty much on everything, right? So this is kind of fun. I'm excited.
Look, it's been talked about how he watched Malick over and over and over and over again before he made this movie. He took nothing away from Malick, aside from maybe some solar flares and a little bit of cinematography. There should be a 4-hour cut of this movie. I guarantee you there's fucking not. And Malick would have never put up with the fucking kids and the shitty acting that they did. Plus, Malick would have never fucking used the voiceover that undercuts everything in this movie. Like, you don't let George Washington talk at all. You don't, and that's okay, because he's kind of that character who doesn't need to, but you don't let any of the moments exist because you have Nausea constantly telling us how to feel, constantly telling us what George is feeling. And then when you're not, you're interspersing it with nonsense dialogue from the fucking adults that plays kind of different in All the Real Girls, where it really kind of bugs me in that movie as well. But this movie is such a fucking example of what an art house, like a student film that wanted to be Malick would be. And I think we forgive this film of all of its shortcomings because it's got an amateur cast that's desperately trying not to look directly at the screen when they say their lines, and then it's got a low budget. It looks pretty, but none of the scenes ever linger. There's not you move from it's not hyperkinetic cuts, but nothing is longer than a 10-15 second cut where Malick would have sat and watched a film go through for good, better, or worse. You would have been able to follow all of this and but everything Nausea says completely undercuts everything we should be learning as an audience about George, without actually having to tell us, here's what you should be learning about George. Oh, the preacher man told us not to come around today. It wants to be kind of a, almost like a Linkletter type slacker, because it cuts to all these homespun folks, and the car crash at the end is supposed to be this kind of I don't even really know, but and he has a real hard time in these first couple of films of figuring out how to end his films. And so when George, and then it doesn't know what it wants to do. George runs away from that and the camera angle tilts, and I'm just fuck you fucking piece of shit. You just you're not that good. You're not. This movie doesn't do the things that it thinks it's doing. And I don't know, man. And and for Christ's sake, the score, if you watch this movie, the first fucking 10 minutes are a cat paw on a Casio. It is the same note building to a crescendo for the first 10 minutes while Nausea is talking. And then it does the same thing throughout the film, and I'm what the fuck? I just couldn't. I was I'm gonna fucking rip my ears off if I have to hear one note go over 3 minutes again. Anyway, you tell me what you
People
thought of this
can't
movie.
see you, but I've never seen his face this shade of red.
I knew I hated this movie for a reason when I first saw it. And I just couldn't remember it, and now I go back to it. I just there's parts of it that I like. I like the act. I mean, I like Buddy. I liked Vernon. I liked Nausea. And I liked George. I thought Paul Schneider is fine. I mean, I hated all of those cutesy dialogue things between the adults. I thought the whole idea of talking about diet and talking about how I just never thought any of that rang true. And then, but had this just been about the kids, had you have just let this been like a meditative experience that it really wanted to be, but if you get rid of if you get rid of the score and the voiceover, I think this is a shit ton better film than what it is. But dressing up George in the wrestling outfit and putting it, I mean, like, and it, I don't know, man. It's just like you don't have the skills to pull off that level of that when you're trying to turn to quirkiness.
Well, sure. So I think it's a little unfair to compare him to Malik.
Okay,
I mean,
fair enough.
I mean,
fair enough.
So look, I mean, it's inescapable to say that that the film is sort of indebted to Malik, that he was clearly infatuated, and apparently he like watched the Thin Red Line over and 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 over.
Right.
So right. It's clearly indebted, but I still think there's enough of him trying to sort of figure out his version of that it's worth giving him some credit there. So I think that there's a lot of compelling scenes where there's this juxtaposition of what I think is really nice cinematography, but these really kind of interesting shots of ugly scenery. And I like that. I like that juxtaposition of seeing like, okay, we can do this with the camera as we're showing these guys break down a train, right? Or rummage through scrap, right? There's a scene where we get kind of I don't know what to call it other than a bulldozer in like a landfill. It's maybe a little too cutesy, but I think you get what he's going for. He's like, I want to compose this and frame this in a kind of color and focus, but it's an ugly moment. Right? I like that. I really do. Even if it's not always effective, because I think that there are some times where the camera zooms in a little too quick, right? Or it pulls out a little too fast, and it sort of takes you out of that, and it makes you notice the fact that, someone's operating that camera, rather than it's just sort of gliding along and sort of just there, or it functions as us, the audience. But there are enough moments for me in that film that are like that work so well, right, that are well thought out, well executed. These moments where it just shows urban decay, but the camera just sort of floats along. And again, the color palette, the use of focus and composition, I think works really well for me. There are moments where I like the voiceover too. Overall, I think it's too much. But look, there are moments where she says, where Nazi is talking, because she is too a little bit on the outside of everyone else. She fancies herself as a little older, a little more sophisticated. She's in search of a serious man, right? Buddy's too much of a child. So she is not quite part of this main group. So she is kind of, just outside. She's talking about her friends, and she says they used to try to find clues to all the mysteries and mistakes God had made. I think that's a really nice, poetic kind of line. That isn't like, they used to go look for frogs in the pond, or they used to go dig around the garbage dump or whatever. It paints them as a little more curious and alchemical, right? I don't know,
sure.
right?
No,
a little more magical.
Yeah.
And then she says that I pretty much just like forgot about all the adults. So I'm with you there. Though I don't need them. These are the people I'm focused on. But she does say about the adults, they were never kids. It was hard for them to find their peace. Don't you know how that feels? And I think that's another moving line that functions really well as we move throughout the film. Does the voiceover work overall? No. But there's enough there for me to be like, okay, those couple lines make it worth it.
And had it have been just those, I think you're right.
Yeah.
You are setting up this. Either this movie needed to have way more plot or way less plot.
Sure.
Like the through line of George becoming a hero, we should have been able to do that on our own. We don't need explanation of why. Like, you get it all. Like, why George can't go into the water. We don't need. Like, let us wonder why he's wearing a helmet, right? Don't. Like you explain it, and
like
then
Walter Matthau in A New Leaf.
Like, and like you already know that he has something wrong with his head, because Vernon's talking about how you don't want to be with him because his head isn't infused together yet. There's lines that you could pick all this stuff out.
But that's a brilliant scene.
It is.
That is a brilliant scene. Yeah,
and that's what maybe makes me so mad about this movie, is that it has so much potential to be something better than what it is, but he doesn't have the confidence to let his story and his actors push this through. Like it's like he got scared and decided, oh shit, in post, I'm going to need her to say a whole bunch of other stuff because nothing's making sense right now. And I've got to go in and I got to make sure the audience is following this because I need them to know that George is wanting to be a hero. Yeah, no shit, motherfucker. He put on a cape. We get it. He put on a wrestling one piece. We understand. He's directing traffic. Like we get that he wants to have a greater purpose after he accidentally killed someone, and they buried him in they haven't buried him. They just left him, where no one would find him.
They put his mask back on.
Right, and so those scenes were really cool. Like that scene with Buddy in the mask was awesome.
Doing his soliloquy.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah, so there are moments in this film that are, like I said, I'm angry about the movie, but I wouldn't give it an F like I did when the first time I saw it. I mean, I do think there's pieces here to pull from, but I do think that one, he didn't have enough movie, so that's why the adults are there. I think this is we'll go and let you do your 5-minute stand-up acts, where you're talking about good eating and blah, blah, and clear pee and all. It's just fuck you, man.
Yeah, that was. I think the only I did kind of enjoy Schneider is Rico. Because he seemed just like another kid, and he seemed to be the one out of the group of adults who actually listened to the kids or in some way like related to the kids. Everyone else just sort of kind of felt like they brushed them off or ignored them, even like the other workers around Rico. But he would sit there and talk to, and there was that nice scene where he talks to Buddy, where Buddy talks about Nausea, dumping him and stuff. And Buddy's like, I love this line too. She had this glaze in her eyes that, man, would just make me tingle all over.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, okay, perfect. And a lot of, apparently, D-Double-G let that kid improvise. He was like, Curtis, man, go ahead. Whatever you do will be cool. It's cool.
Right.
And so he just did.
And I think there needed to be more of that, because then when you get Curtis with, I forget the blonde-haired kid's name, the white kid who...
Sonia?
Was that? It was a boy.
Or the freckled kid who almost drowned. Yeah. Did he have a name? He was just freckled kid in a neck brace.
Right. Freckled neck brace kid. Like he clearly was not comfortable in this movie. Like there's that scene where he's with Vernon the entire, and like again, he's looking right off of camera because he does not want to look at the camera. Yeah. And again, that's fine. I can excuse that, especially in a lower budget film like this. But I do feel like there should have been more of what was good and less of, again, like I would have just left the movie unscored if that's all I could do. I mean, it really, again, I tend to like fucking be shitty about things like that anyway. But so I just kind of focused on, I was like, oh my God, what are we doing here? And that's the thing. I think this movie had potential. I felt like Green didn't trust his instincts here. And I think, again, you want your movie is called George Washington. You are about the movie, for good, better, or indifferent, if you plot or no plot. This movie's main character is George Washington. Don't tell us about him. Let George. If someone's going to tell us about the character, let George's actions and words tell us, rather than some voiceover. Because what we're seeing now is like, again, then you lose the randomness of the entirety of the movie, right? Now a boy dies, a boy gets saved, and there's a random car wreck to kind of undercut and have another kind of, emotional explosion.
Well, that was Vernon and Sonia.
Right. So it's another tragedy that happens.
I mean, they're our friends.
True. It's weird because the car that they show them stealing, I got kind of bent because I was like, the car they were showing they're stealing wasn't the car that they wrecked, and so I was like, okay, wait a minute, what, did I miss something? But at that point, I was already mad, so it didn't really matter. So
there's a through line. They keep trying to steal a car and they can't.
Right.
And so, and then that's where Nausea's voiceover is like, they finally stole a car and crashed it.
Right. And so again, let us figure all of that out, right?
Because we kind of cut to seeing them running away, but that's all we need.
Right.
I mean,
and also like you talk about poeticness. I mean, again, the foreshadowing of George directing traffic in his wrestling uniform, and then you cut to the fucking car crash. Like, there's a beauty in that. Yeah. I would love to see a recut of this movie without the voiceover, or just the parts of the voiceover that actually work or actually are poetic. Yeah. But there's so much in there that is just like, here's art house movie for you, and here's everything, that I think it undermines what he was trying to accomplish with this.
Do you think people say the same things about Malick?
I think you either,
again, I'm not comparing the two.
No. I think you're either dyed in the wool Malick or I don't know. Like later Malick, I mean, I think you can probably like I don't know. I think
is that why I like this film so much? Because I'm like anything Terrence Malick does, even if I know it's bad, I'll still sit there and be like, it's so beautiful.
Right. Maybe so. Yeah, but I don't. I think you have. I don't know. I think there's a level of film snobbery that has to exist for you to like really like Malick. I mean, like,
wow, thanks.
No, I really like Malick too. But I don't think like Thin Red Line is not going to pull in $100 million over the course of its run, type of thing. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to like allow yourself to sit with a Gene Dealman type movie and just like let it wash over you and let it be quiet. It's, there's a lot of it like even with like equated to like Errol Morris documentaries and things like that, where it's just you have to allow. There's maybe film snobbery is not right, but if you're all you're going to see, and again, not judging, but if all you're going to see is fucking Made in Manhattan, you're not going to like a Malick film, right? If that's the only thing you've been exposed, you might, but you're not going to seek it out, right? It's not going to be, if you're just going for the occasional piece of entertainment, fine, but you've got to like kind of want to have to sit in that environment.
So if this film were more quiet, it would have worked better.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I just kept going to like I just kept screaming at the movie, just like let it breathe. Yeah, let it breathe. Let the moments, like that's the thing that he doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really do is I'll go back and confirm, but like the lingering shots weren't lingering. This is an hour and a half at best, right? So I mean like and he is trying to tell a story. I think that's the problem here is that you can't be Malick and tell us. I mean, like you can't like really have that level of coherence that he wants in this, and you can't have that level of I'm going to force feed everyone with here's what's happening. Like the scene where Buddy dies. It's so telegraphed, right? Malick would have just let it happen on the first push. Like you don't need the back and forth tension. That's Bush League fucking filmmaking because everyone sees that coming, and it makes. I mean, look, it works because you get tense, right? But Malick you never would have seen it coming. Mm-hmm. Like it would have just been boys' feet or boys' hands, and then all of a sudden, a head hitting the ground, or because the scene after that, like again, let the boy's head hit the ground and let him get up on his own because the scene after that's so harrowing, right? When he's in the stall and the back of his head's bleeding, and then But now we're set up as like, oh shit, now what's going to happen? Now what are they going to do? Like Malick would have never been interested in any of that. It would have just been the moments that happened. And that's what this movie, like I said, it just kept pushing you and then pulling you right back out of it. And I was just like, damn, there's a good movie here. It's just, he's not confident in a filmmaker to let it go.
This is something that I think did pull me out when they were being interviewed by the cops, or Vernon's like, I got to get out of here. I gotta go. They're asking questions. You're right. We don't need any of that because that's not what. It's almost like the movie is cut in two, right? The first half is before Buddy's death, and it is just this kind of these vignettes, right? This kind of slow moving sort of summer, and then Buddy dies, and then it turns into what's going to happen to these kids. Even Sonia's like, I'm not a good person. I love that scene though, where Sonia's like, I'm not a good person. I don't have like feelings or emotions, and I worry that it's contagious, right? She's like, she's worried that other people are going to catch it from her. That's going to rub off on other people. I mean, I think you could still have conversations like that even without the, they're going to put me in jail. I'm, 12 years old and Buddy's dead and all this stuff, right? Because I think now it becomes almost like almost like a plot-driven thriller. But there's no plot,
right? And this, like you said, if this movie cuts out all of the adults, like all together, because again, when you see the kids pretending to be adults, they're all sitting around the home, doing each other's hair and talking about their, when they're going to have kids and when they want to have, and again, this feels like, those scenes feel like Harmony Korine and Larry Clark's kids, and not obviously not to that extent. It's not shocking like.
But you never see adults.
But and if you had never seen adults in any of this, I think you would still have gotten the fact that they would be scared to be talking to the police. They would be scared of what was going to happen to them. You get like George's, you don't need people telling George that he shouldn't have dove into the pool to save the boy because his head can't get wet. Because, all of that should have just let it breathe. Mm-hmm. We could have all have gleaned all of that from the actions on the screen. And instead, again, we're being told.
Yeah. It is his first film. Cut him some slack. I mean, this is the man that gave us this is the man that gave us Pineapple Express and 3 Halloween films. Yes, Your Highness.
And The Sitter, for God's sakes.
Mm-hmm. So, I just take a breath. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say about this, or should we?
No. I think I'm good. I think I've ranted long enough.
All right, listen.
Did the friendship still remain? I mean, are we still good at the
Oh, of course. No, this is look. When I checked in with you to see if you still hated this film, I was like, I hope he says yes, right? Because I do have a fondness for it, even though I see the flaws. Right? I mean, I can see the flaws and I can still have this fondness, but I mean, I'm always going to veer towards this when I see somebody trying something like this. I'm going to give you full credit, right? And I'll be like, yeah, some of this other stuff could have been like better or whatever, but I still love you, man. I still love what you're doing here. So, but like I said, I can see the flaws, and I'm glad you hate it. Good. I'm glad you know. Glad you know why you hate it.
And I'm the guy who sees someone try and kicks them in the balls and says, "Do better."
No, but this is why we have this podcast. We can balance each other out, right? I can overpraise, you can harshly criticize, and that person will come out going, "Okay, yeah, I feel pretty good about myself now."
Yeah, that's nice. So yeah, DWG, if you're listening, feel free to come on and defend yourself.
So okay, Jason. This river goes 2 ways. That way and that way. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Let's talk about all the real girls.
Worst fucking scene in the movie.
No, it's not. It's not. Like, what are you going to do if you see a water dog coming down here? And it says, look at you, land dog. You see what this is? This is water. Get in it.
Yeah.
Can you close your eyes?
I like you because I can say what's on my mind.
How am I supposed to think this girl is enough for you?
Well, you'll meet her and then you'll know.
Are you in love now or something?
Marshall says he saw you hanging out with my little sister. Huh?
What makes you so special beside the fact that you're new back in town and you don't know what kind of guy he is?
If he's so horrible, why are you his best friend?
What are you even talking about? What do you got to do?
Tanya, will you please have sex with me? Please.
All right. We're supposed to be friends, Sam. What's wrong with you?
It's different when it's your family. Tip sees in you is exactly what he hates in himself.
Well, what do you want me to do?
You're not sorry. No, I know that because you're not smart enough to be sorry.
Have you ever seen an animal make a mistake?
I love you! Why would you say that? What is wrong with you?
I just want it to be like she never existed.
No, you don't. I can tell you that right now.
You're so nice. Sometimes I'm scared of myself. I'm not scared with you.
All the real girls.
All right, listen. Here's our basic kind of like plot. God, you're a hater today.
Well,
it's usually me. It's usually me that like hates everything. But boy, okay. So Paul and Noelle start a kind of nascent relationship. Paul is an unlikely ladies' man, or rather has slept with pretty much all the women in town because he's kind of like the last best option. I feel like everyone slept with everybody in this town because there's just not that many people.
Right.
So Noelle is home from boarding school. Noelle is a virgin, and she's also Tip's sister. Tip is Paul's best friend, so this predictably leads to tension, but we get the idea that it'll be okay. Noel goes on a lake trip, a weekend away with friends, and sleeps with another guy. The rest of the film is Paul dealing with his emotions around this. This movie ends with Paul having a one-way conversation with his dog, who refuses to go swimming. It's brilliant because it's actually a conversation that he's having to himself. He's talking to himself. Right? He's saying, "Paul, what is this? It's water. Get in it." Right, okay. But look, I think, again, this is another film like George Washington that there's not a whole lot going on. It's lyrical, it's fragmented. To try and summarize it more than this, I think it's just kind of too hard.
Right. There's not, I don't think we need to go into the intricacies of each plot, plot detail.
Right.
Yeah, it's small town love, young small town love. The townspeople are stuck there. They'll always be stuck there.
But you do get the sense that like Noelle has something else going for her. Right? I mean, that she could, be somewhere else. But you also get the feeling, at least from some of the other adults or Paul's kind of family, that he has some other options too. We don't necessarily see them, but they're hinted at throughout.
Yeah, I think, if dime store psychoanalysis reading into it, is that Paul's charisma made people think that he had the ability to potentially get out of town, and to make something of himself. But he was just like the rest of them, essentially. Mm-hmm. And, he's going to be working, he doesn't have much, because none of these people come off as overly intelligent or overly ambitious or
Bust-ass went to school.
Bust-ass went to school. And a great opening role for Danny McBride is Bust-ass. It's a good name.
Moo hair. Pretty sure Senorita's woman. He does play sort of comic relief in this. I mean, to an extent, without being clownish, really.
Right. So all of the things that I didn't think worked for George Washington, I think worked for this film. I think obviously, he won. One of the things too that I didn't really touch on about George Washington was I don't feel like D-double-G is the right person to tell a black kid's story.
Well, a comment on that. He and I saw this on a sort of featurette of some deleted scenes where he was trying to make a story, or he's trying to make a film really about a community, not necessarily a black community, white community, poor community. He was trying to go for a kind of contemporary film that could be kind of anywhere and about anyone. So because George Washington
didn't succeed then.
Yes. That's fair. Because I don't really see George Washington as like a black kid's story. I mean, there are black kids in the film, but it's not. I
agree with you. I agree that the story that it's telling is not a black kid's story. It is a coming of age summer story, and that's and to happen to be. I agree with you.
Okay.
I just feel like when your entire cast is black.
Predominantly, because there's
a few kids and there's a few adults that are not, but and again, 2001 different than today, so maybe a different lens, right? I'm not saying that it's,
but I understand. You know who else loved George Washington?
Ebert.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I read his fucking review, and that's why I talked about like you bring to it what you bring to it, right?
Well, because his review really was
like, I remember jumping in the fishing hole.
But we've talked about this on this very podcast, this kind of like phenomenological approach to reading text, and like we allow ourselves to kind of let our memories interact with art as a way of understanding it and seeing it. So what we're coming to understand is that I'm very much a romantic and child at heart, and you are this hard, cynical old man.
I was, so the movie that I relate to, my childhood, is Over the Top with Steve Buscemi. Because I was a boarding school kid who my dad was a truck driver, and we went around to different bars to arm wrestle.
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw my lapel pin today.
I did not.
But it's a purple heart with a little flower on it, and it says, "I'm a big tough girl."
Nice.
So I think we just sort of like,
we figured it out.
We figured it all out.
We figured it out. But my point being that, and one of the other things that works in this, in All the Right Girls, is that he's more.
That was a Freudian slip.
Anyway. So, yes, is that he knows this story better. Yeah. This is a story that he's more comfortable telling. He's also a story that he's more comfortable letting his seasoned actors act in. Mm-hmm. You've got, I forget the guy's name who plays Tit, but he's a good actor.
Shea Wiggins.
How
could you forget
Shea? Because he's that guy. He's that guy to me. Like, what else is Shea? What's your big Shea Wiggins thing that you love then?
Fast Five.
Okay. Oh shit.
He's also in.
I forgot that's who he was.
He's also in Ampersand.
Wait, was he in
Fast
5?
and Furious.
I thought he was just in Fast 4.
No, because doesn't Brian have to go back and get arrested and mess with Braga in jail? Or was that 6?
No, that's 4.
Is that 4?
Or maybe 4 and 6. I don't remember now. No. 6 is when he goes back to Braga in jail.
Okay.
Because 4, they're trying to take down Braga.
Right. And then 5, they go in, and then 6, he goes back.
Yes.
So he's in 4 and 6.
Yes.
Shea Wiggins.
Yeah, and 2. Right? Isn't he in 2? Like, he's not, like, that's where, it's just 4 that he came up with? Okay.
Because Fast and Furious is when Brian gets back to the FBI, and he and Shea Wiggins are like office nemesis.
Right. He punches him, he breaks his nose.
Yeah, a couple different times.
Right.
Shea Wiggins has also been in, he was in a movie called Small Engine Repair.
I did not see that. I just figured it was an actual movie about small engine repair, and I was like, I'm never going to do that.
I mean, the guy owns a small engine repair shop. I mean,
also, I saw Sling Blade, so I didn't need to see any more movies about small engine repair. Although he didn't repair that small engine, it was just there was no gas.
It's an interesting film. If you get a chance, it's worth watching. It's not great. It's based off of a stage play. The director and star, I forget the guy's name, sorry. But it was his stage plays. He wrote the stage play.
It was all done out the back of his small engine repair shop.
Yeah. Oh, right. And so you had to actually go travel to this little spot in Virginia to go watch this play in a small engine repair shop. It was, it's a real hipster sort of play.
Right.
So
there
was a barista.
Price of admission was also you had to have a broken down small engine.
Right. But you had a barista over there, making latte art, and then a bartender making those really fancy cocktails. Old fashions that take 25 minutes to actually make. Right. But it's anyway, right? It's a film worth seeing.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to denigrate Shea Wiggins' career, but I mean, yeah. So Deschanel is clearly kind of the up and comer, and this is Green's ingenue here and so this movie throws you right into a story between two burgeoning lovers. One who wants to make good on his Lothario reputation and not take advantage of his best friend's sister, a girl who's probably reaching out to a boy that she's heard about or known for her entire life, and now has the opportunity to and also sees him as a breakout from the boarding house,
the all female boarding school,
right?
That she goes to.
I mean, and to me the nonsensical dialogue to a certain extent, this plays a very great counter to a Kevin Smith movie, where this kind of pairs with Chasing Amy in a way, because there's a lot of the same emotional beats, but there's emotional tension in the same, but where Kevin Smith is just hyper scripted, this is just these actors saying what's coming. I loved their dialogue, even in the simplicity of all that it was.
I love it so much. I have a page of quotes, right? But speaking of, I mean, there's a moment where Noel is talking to Bustass, and they're talking about food, and he's like, these pretzels are carbs expand in your stomach, and she starts talking about pancakes do too, and he's like, I did not know that. Oh, that's interesting. And then she's like. And he's like, I don't eat pancakes. And she's like, well, aren't you ever in the mood for waffles or French toast? And he just goes, no, the places I go are not that fancy.
But he actually says the places
I do not go. I know. So this was something else that I love about both of these films is that he lets them make mistakes and they just stay in.
Right.
Because you feel like that is a more natural, back to what you were saying about dialogue. I mean, this is so sort of flat and unaffected, but it seems like what they would actually be saying. So yeah, he would say, no, I do not go. The places I do not go are not that fancy. But regardless, that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's great. It was awesome. I mean, look, of all of the Danny McBride-ness that exists today and the character that he is, to see the kind of birthplace of it all and to see where it could have stayed had it not just blown up and become just this ridiculous. Look, I love Kenny Powers as much as the next guy.
But it's a caricature.
But now it's a caricature. Yeah, now he's doing fucking cell phone commercials or whatever, or like Tide commercials or what. I mean, like using that same persona. It's a little disappointing, but
I don't watch TV. I'm kidding.
But in this one movie also, the older adults are then the ones that are spouting poetry and those poetic lines of like, about being rich and being poor and never being more happy. And like, there's all of these lines that would exist in a Malick film as a voiceover that just punctuates the scene that he does so very well here. Like Clarkson is so good in this movie.
So good.
She's so good. I mean, when she slaps him and is like, "I was fucking beautiful," like that scene is so great, and it's just so well done.
Stay on that scene because there's a moment where they stop talking, but the dialogue keeps going, like in voiceover, and the composition of that scene is Clarkson's on a chair, kind of next to the couch, off to the side. And Schneider's in the center of the couch, and neither of them are moving, and their eyes are closed, but their voices are still going. It was so fucking cool. I don't know, but I thought it was like so effective to really convey that kind of emotional, that heavy emotional moment that they're both going through. I mean, that was one of the most effective scenes in there. Like you're right, none of that was in George Washington. Moments like that weren't
Well,
there.
they weren't allowed to be, right? I mean,
right.
so the evolution in 2 years of him being able to go and have that scene where Clarkson is like almost pissed at,
and she's in her clown costume.
Right. No, yeah, this is very much like a scene from Shortcuts with Julianne Moore, where like she's just bottomless, right?
Yeah.
It's that scene where she's like, and essentially telling Paul, you should have been more. You should have been something else. You could have gotten out of this. And like, I should have gotten out of this. And now this is my fucking face. You want to be me? You want to put this on? And like, I was fucking beautiful. But now I fucking dance, for sick kids as a clown. I'm a literal fucking clown stuck in this poor town.
But this was. Did you read Ebert's review of
No,
this
I
film
did not.
too?
I didn't.
Because he points this out.
Oh, does
He's like, look, this is to DWG's credit that he knows that people actually do this for a job and can find more fulfillment and money doing this than working at Walmart.
Right.
Which is where like you might expect her to actually work.
Right.
And so to Ebert's credit, he's like saying this is a really good detail that he knows that not many of us do. So I mean, I like
that whole crew. I will say about what they have done in their film and the good films that they've made is they've been able to kind of capture that lower class. No offense to anybody, kind of like working class rural America zeitgeist that like, and then Jodie Hill turns it on. It's kind of like ugly comedy aspect of it all. But they really do have a good kind of finger on that pulse of, without making it seem like they're judging those people or looking down upon them. I mean, these are all like, because again, everyone you meet here, there's one scene when they're at the bar and Paul is kind of like, he's found out about what Noel's done. He's trying to reconcile all of that. And an old conquest of him just comes in and is like, basically like, look, how does it feel to know that you'll never get out of this town and this is as good as it's ever going to get? It's just like he just stands up and throws his beer glass down and yeah, it's.
Her name is Mary Margaret, and she sits down and he apologizes. He wants to apologize. He's like, look, if when we were going out, if I ever hurt your feelings, I'm really sorry. Right now, I'm really sorry. And she's like, shut the fuck up. Here's the thing: you're not sorry. You're not smart enough to be sorry. So cutting and so sharp and so smart. You're not smart enough to be sorry. But that moment, him and her in that moment felt so real and so true because I have been in that exact moment. And I mean, not to be like, but I have been Paul in that moment. And there's, again, like bringing our own stuff to it, right? But that moment rings so authentic and so true, right? I think, again, like in a way that maybe some of the stuff in George Washington didn't.
Watching this again, and I've seen it a few times. I haven't seen it in probably a decade. About halfway through the film, Paul and Noelle are really kind of hitting it off, but they've decided to. Paul's basically decided not to have sex with her because he doesn't want to be. He wants to be a better person. He doesn't want it to be like all the other ones that he's all the other girls that he's been with in town.
You're not like the other girls.
Noelle goes off on a retreat with her friends. Or goes off to a lake with her friends, and she calls him at one point, and you see her kind of flirting with this kind of what would be an out of town guy drinking wine. I mean, I think the drinking wine, right, is the perfect like analogy and like perfect picture.
He's probably a college sophomore, right?
Right.
Who's taken like one philosophy class and one English lit class in his life, and it's like, wine. I also play billiards. I mean,
right. Have you read Tolstoy?
Hey, Anna Karenina is the greatest novel ever written. I'm pretty sure I've said this before.
You have.
Okay.
So what I was basically saying is you were that guy in the window.
Fuck you.
So she beds him. This happens off screen. Well, we don't know if she beds him or not. But we're kind of given the idea. This happens off screen, and then of course she comes back and tells Paul, essentially because she tells Paul that that's how she knew she loved him, because the act felt wrong. And Paul's like, how the fuck could you say? I knew this scene was coming up, and as soon as I saw them in the park together, my stomach started getting tight, and I was just like, oh God, I can't. This is gonna be rough. Like literally, my stomach started pitting up. I was like, oh man. That's such a good scene, and it's where Paul is like, I forget the exact line about it. I don't want to hear anything coming out of your mouth.
I'll give it to you because I have it, right? I'm looking at you right now, and I hear you talking, and all the words that are coming out of your mouth are like they're coming out of a stranger. Why don't you put your fucking hair back on and come back? Just come on back.
Yeah,
that broke my heart.
I know.
Man.
Just put your hair back on and come back, because she got her haircut when she was gone. And then he walks away about 10 yards and then just stops and starts pounding the ground. And like it's so like again, it's just emotion of like helplessness, and like he has no idea what else to do. And so he's just going to sit there and punch his fist into the ground because the person that he was trying to be better for has now betrayed him. And then, of course, they go back and forth where she tries to, they end up eventually sleeping with one another, which is like another heartbreaking scene, because you realize that Paul's never going to be able to get over the fact that she slept with somebody else. And she knows that, and also knows that Paul is not the guy that she thought he was. And then you also start to see Noelle take a job in town and realize that she's probably going to be stuck here regardless of her boarding school, and that this is going to be her life, and it's just going to be her and bust-ass hanging around bars and shit. And so be it, right? But, it's I don't know, man. This whole fucking thing is so heartbreaking and so well done. And, like, she's so good, and so's Paul, so's Tip, so's Bust-Ass. Like, everyone in this movie is just, like I said, out of all of the things, like, he really found the way to, one, let his actors improvise and to work with the scene, and then let that scene, like, stick around and, like, and stay for a moment. They don't get back together in the end. They have a few dalliances where they come back and they talk to one another, but at the end of the day, they're not able to overcome their differences. And Noelle basically says to him, I'm not going to let you hate me. But, and then she walks back up to her house.
Right. She says more than that. She's like, basically, again, professes her love for him again and says, you have my heart or whatever, and then walks away. So, it's a little more, I don't know, ambiguous in terms of how she feels. I think I see it as both of them being more than happy to move on, right. From each other. But I don't know. It seems like he has more to move on from. Maybe.
Yeah, his ending is definitely the more upbeat one, right? He has promised. Because again, it looks like, from a whatever perspective, that this is an 18-year-old girl, right? It's not. It's just, and for both of them, right? It's just another person. It's not. Right. It's not the person, right? It's just someone you felt.
But this is what's so interesting, I think, too, about this film. Because I think, like a lesser film, the whole thing would have been about, are they going to sleep together or not? And then two, are they going to get back together or not? And it's not really about those things. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be something better, in this case. Finding what you consider to be sort of real love. And there is an age difference. So this kind of, real love is probably more coming from him than it is her, right? Again, right? She's not like the other girls, and he kind of says that, right? He's like, I don't want it to be like it was with other people. But then when you lose that, then this film starts to examine what happens when you lose this thing that you thought was so important. How do you deal with that, right? How do you get over that? How do you come back from that? There's a scene where Paul is walking along with his Uncle Leland, discussing this, and he says something about her being a virgin, and Leland goes, "What?" He just goes, "You didn't even," and he goes, he's like, "Ugh!" And then he goes, "If somebody, what does he say? If somebody smiles at me ever again, I'm gonna freak out." But that kind of, I think that sort of shows us all of these frustrations and emotions that are so pent up. And he's like, I don't know what to do with any of this. I'm just so like, don't even smile at me, right? I'm going to lose my shit.
All the while while this is happening, it turns out that Tip may have impregnated his girlfriend as well. So you start to see the trappings of what could have been with Noelle and Paul and everyone else in this town, right? Where you get stuck in not ever being able to get out. Although Tip never had any sort of
ambition,
ambition to get out. He knew he was going to be a drunk in this town for the rest of his life, and wasn't necessarily okay with that, but knew who he was.
The soundtrack is really good.
It is.
I've been listening to a lot of Sparkle Horse.
Nice. Yeah.
So if that tells you anything about the mood I'm in. So let's talk about the Manic Pixie Dream Girl kind of ish. I don't. Do you consider Noelle in this film that kind of character?
Maybe, but I don't think she falls completely in that category, because the Manic Pixie Dream Girl would have never done what she did, right?
Right.
She never would have turned she never would have been challenging to, not in that particular way. She never would have shown Paul who he was by doing what he would have done and showing him how it felt. Like, that never happens in that. So you take Natalie Portman in Garden State,
yeah,
right?
Which is exactly what I'm thinking.
Right.
Too,
that doesn't happen there, right? So, no, I mean, I think there's bits of that, but I think I don't know. I think she has her own. I think she has her own agency, especially once that all happens. Had this just been a straightforward of will they, won't they, and then they do, and then something happens where
trouble,
right?
But they quickly get over that,
right? Bust ass does something stupid or kisses her or whatever. They, and they get to go on and live their lives. That's a terrible movie,
right?
But yeah, no, I don't think so. I think she does a good job of kind of staying away from that.
Yeah, I do too. I don't see it that way either. I see her as a character with her own agency, as a woman who wants what she wants, and she's kind of like, oh, okay, look, because she wants to sleep with him, and he's the one who sort of like stops, and
right.
and you get the sense that she's like, I'm going to do this because I want to right now, and great, right? But yeah, I don't see her as existing in this film purely for the service of a man. I think that, Paul is our main character. I think that through interaction with her, he takes something that allows him to be something different, to grow, to be better, whatever. And I think that's how characters work. But yeah, I don't see her as surely not like Garden State, of course, right? Which is just a year after this.
Right. And that's the lesson that Paul learns in all of this, right? Is that she was never the tool. He could have become a better person just by being a fucking better person. She's not the tool to make him a better person. That's not fair to her. Right?
But this is how we learn things, right? We meet people and we're like, well, you're an asshole. I don't want to be like you. And then we're a better person,
right?
No, but what I mean is, it doesn't have to be anything huge or momentous to understand.
Sure.
Case in point, where he can go, okay, I don't want to be like this for the rest of my life. I need to change somehow. And then he figures out also by having conversations with his dog, where he's actually talking to himself. Right? Can I give you a little bit of just cheap research on this film? So Green and Schneider started working on and writing this film in the late 90s. They made this film because no one was making the kind of love story they wanted to watch or that they felt was accurate. They wanted to make a film that was contemporary and about how it feels when you get your gut in a knot, which you got your gut in a knot watching it, right? So at one point he couldn't get funding, so he went back to work at a doorknob factory.
I didn't know there was a thing like that.
I know. And then he eventually teamed up with Sony Pictures Classic and Lisa Muscat and Gene Dumanian as producers. Apparently before that, a studio, I couldn't find exactly which studio, offered a bigger budget, but they wanted Freddie Prinze Jr. to play the role of Paul. So that was their, they're like, we'll give you money, but you have to do this. You have to have this guy. So I'm wondering, maybe it was Miramax at that time because he had just come off She's All That in like 99, 2000.
Oh God, what a fucking terrible.
Could you imagine the different movie that would have been if he would have agreed to? I mean, thankfully he didn't. But
I don't hate Freddie Prinze, but he is who he is, right? I mean, so like, there's no way.
And he's way too pretty,
right?
I mean, especially at that point,
right? Yeah, this. And like there's an authenticity to this because these guys know each other so well. I don't know how Deschanel plays into all of that, but this seems like one of those things where you need people to kind of live in each other's skin for, at least a few weeks before you start filming in this. Yeah. I don't. Prinze barely had the chops to pull off I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like, I mean, like I said, he's a pretty guy. He was always going to be a teen idol movie star kind of guy. I don't mind him, and She's All That. It's, there's certain movies that are like those teen movies that don't require much, but there's no fucking way he pulls this off.
But again, I mean, when you take the glasses off of her, whew, again, going back to the original name for the podcast, can I give you some more quotes from this movie that I just absolutely adored? So, the group of guys are walking to the diner. Bust-ass or Mary Margaret comes running by to go to work, and they all see her. And Bust-ass says, "Oh, I'd like to hang out with her for a few afternoons." Make some pizza. Let me give you another bust-ass line. This is, again, Dan McBride. Let's dip our nuts in whiskey and get the girls drunk. Okay, let's see. Noelle talking to Paul. You're the first person that I've wanted to tell that to because you're the first person that I've wanted to talk to for more than 5 minutes. Ever. I like that.
That was a fucking terrible story too, where she kills a kid, by running over because her dad was too drunk to run the boat.
I know. Paul says to Noelle, when people from before come up, I want you to understand what they hate when they see me. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. This movie really kind of hits home for reasons I won't go into. But it's
just that, like, I think it kind of, like, the first time you see it, like, I hope that people listening to this will, and again, this is kind of late in the podcast to say this, but I hope people will, I hope that they will see it before they listen to us talk about it. Because I think that it lulls you to sleep in a little bit of a way because you think you know how all this is going, and then when you get to the middle part where when they're at the field together, and like, because you feel what Paul feels, right? Mm-hmm. You want these two people to be together. Like, they're cute. You want Paul to be a better person. You think that I don't know, man. And then that scene where she's just like, we fucked. We fucked. I don't know how to put we fucked, and he's just like, what? Like,
what? He hurt you?
Right. What? Did he forcibly rape you?
Who is it?
No, you're not listening to me. I love you. We fucked. That's how I know I love you.
You love me.
And it's just like, what are you even saying? It's such a good scene. It is such a good scene. So like, I think this is probably out of all of his movies at this point, this is the one that I really, this is why I wanted to do a series on him, because I think this showed, I mean, like, and I get it. I get the love for George Washington. I feel like this is really his calling card.
Oh,
like
100% sure. Oh, of course. This is this is sort of like him taking all your advice on George Washington.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No. Yeah.
But I also kind of look at these two films as kind of like kindred sequels, where I'm like, what if the kids from George Washington grew up?
Right.
And because, look, both sets of people are doomed. The kids in George Washington are doomed. These people are doomed. I mean, they're just going to do the same thing over, right? I mean, I used to joke. Back when I was drinking, I used to drink in this blue-collar bar, very much like populated by people like this. And it was a joke where I'd be like, yeah, I'm sitting among the doomed. We're all doomed. All of us here in this room are just doomed, right? I mean, thankfully, I'm here with you, right? I've been saved and redeemed in a way that Florence Pugh's character never got. Anyway, right? But I do think that he he learned a lot from that first film, and probably realized where he made some of those missteps, and changed it here, and it's great. I'm going to give you one more quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just for you. This is from Feng Shui. Uncle Leland's daughter. Pretend you're standing over the ocean. You're a millionaire. Pretend you're running over the ocean. You're jumping across mountains. You're jumping across mountains. Everybody loves you. All right, you got anything else?
No. Okay. Go watch All the Real Girls. It's good.
It's super
good.
hard
you
to
can,
find.
You can stay away from the other two, but yeah.
So I do have I wonder why he, and we can I think talk about this as we keep going, but I wonder why he stopped making films like this per se.
I don't really know. It's of an auteur that has a voice. It's interesting that he would go towards such mainstream stuff. He kind of mirrors Linklater in a way, because in the sense that Linklater would go on to make kind of like big budget, more mainstream fare, and to varying degrees of success, like David Gordon Green. I don't know. It's one of those things where this type of person seems like he would have stuck with his own material all the way through. Like this type of person that seems like he would, because you don't really see. I don't even know, to be fair, what all Jody Hill has done. I know he did the Kenny Powers stuff, and but that still feels like in that same genre in which they play in.
Yeah.
Why you would go and do The Sitter, which seems like such a mainstream, like middle of the road teen comedy. Pineapple Express, maybe he's playing with your friends a little bit. And I don't know, maybe this was the design all along, that he wanted to be a major studio, and that's what gets you to do your dream of a Halloween trilogy. Who the hell knows? I don't know.
I'm just curious.
But it's weird that, and maybe they just drove. It's weird that they would have chose him to also then drive buckets worth of money to do those types of films. I can see I can see why Danny McBride would want to break out from some of that stuff. He can get creative control over certain things and be able to obviously become a go-to kind of if not necessarily an A-lister, a player in the comedy realm or whatever. But I don't know. And I'm interested to see the progression, because I know the next two are kind of in the same vein, and then I don't know where we go from there. I really haven't kept too much tabs on how it's all plays out.
Yeah, Undertow and Snow Angels are the next two, and Undertow, I haven't seen Snow Angels yet, but Undertow,
and he keeps coming back to it, right? Because he does that one. What was the one with Paul Rudd?
Prince Avalanche.
Yes, Prince Avalanche, and he did Joe with Nick Cage. So he kind of dips his toe.
Was that Nick Cage?
Yeah.
Why did I think it was McConaughey? Oh, that was Mud.
Was McConaughey. I don't think he did Mud.
No, I know, but Joe Mud. I mean, come on.
Right, just 3 letters.
All right. Do you want to give the people some recommendations?
Some recommended if you like.
We still don't have a song for that.
So if my recommended if you like, and if my recommended if you like a good person, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't really know what to recommend to you. But to see a better movie than that, I would say watch When a Man Loves a Woman, 1994, by Brian and Andy Garcia. Early appearance by Philip Seymour Hoffman as well. Luis Mendaki is the person who directed that. But a person who does need redemption, who is an alcoholic, who's about to lose her marriage, and starts to go through the addictive step, going through the program. One of Meg Ryan's kind of breaking out of her manic pixie dream girl era and really starting to latch on to her acting.
She was a manic pixie dream girl in The Cub, wasn't she?
Yes, very much so. That was like the epitome of manic pixie dream girl.
Jane Campion's manic pixie dream girl.
So When Only Man Loves a Woman, 1994.
So mine kind of fits with that, and it's Smashed from 2012. James Ponsell, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Aaron Paul, also Nick Offerman, Megan Mullally. It's good. And this also goes back to the idea of what a good person might have been if we stuck with the relationship, right? The couple relationship, because Winstead and Paul are a married couple who are both functioning alcoholics. And look, here's the thing. If you are in a relationship with an alcoholic, everything gets forgiven because they understand. Right? But stuff, bad things typically happen when one person quits and the other doesn't. And a lot of times even if both quit. Right? And that's what happens in this film is Winstead decides to stop drinking. And the tension kind of goes from there. But good performances by everyone in this film, I think. And
a similar thing happens when a man loves a woman. She's fun until she's not, and then it's a problem, right? So, yeah. A good person is such a Mad Libs type movie where it's just
it's like 7 different films.
Yeah,
with a toy train metaphor that never does anything.
and yeah, that whole metaphor of like everyone's perfect in this town and they're all doing exactly what they should be doing, and like. Yeah, the audacity of Braff to try to think that he could pull that off is such like where's the Scrubs reunion movie? Like I feel like you could pull that off. I feel like there's
just stick with the Ted Lasso episodes.
Right. So my recommended if you liked George Washington, I was gonna go with Gummo, Harmony Korine's Gummo, but I can't really. I don't want to recommend that movie. I don't want to like be that guy who recommends Gummo. I like Gummo, but it is not it's not an easy watch. I'm going to give you another movie that's not an easy watch either. It's Out of the Blue with Dennis Hopper, Linda Mann's. Basically, a young girl who has an ex-convict father and an alcoholic mother. It's not. It's more of a young girl trying to figure out her place. She doesn't know how to deal, so she starts to turn into the punk scene, and she starts to like emulate Elvis.
Yeah, she's a big Elvis fan.
Yeah, it is. Linda Mann's kind of breakout role. She doesn't do much after this. She comes into a few indie films, but it is so good and hard to watch. But I highly recommend to anybody to go watch Out of the Blue.
And Severn Films just did a 4K restoration of that too. So.
They released it. I actually saw it at the Texas Theater. They did a run of it in indie theaters. It was
when
right around the Oak Cliff Film Festival a couple of years ago. I think. Yeah.
Okay, my recommendation for if you like George Washington is Ain't Them Body Saints by David Lowery.
Yeah, local boy.
Yeah, I love Lowery. He's another guy that makes these kind of, well, this film at least is kind of a Malick indebted, but probably even more of a George Washington indebted film. I think he probably came to George Washington before he came to Malick, right? But I think this is infinitely better in how it's executed. I really like this film. Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck and Ben Foster, and it's Lovers on the Run in part, and it's Southern Gothic in part, and it's gorgeous, and it is slow, and it is dreamlike, and it is. Again, like the dialogue's clever and it's sharp, and he's got an ear.
Lowery's career will be interesting, right? Because he dips his toe into the Disney realm. I'm interested. I think Peter Pan and Wendy it comes out soon, if not this weekend on Disney Plus. Yes, yeah.
Oh,
so that's the movie he made after Green Knight.
Right. So I ignore like Pete's Dragon and Peter. No. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying like these are the things that fall off my radar. But then a Ghost Story pops up and I'm like, oh, good, let's go to the theater. I mean, that's right. Or a Green Knight. Oh, or the Green Knight. Yeah, let's go to the.
I would say give Pete's Dragon a chance.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's not bad. It's still a kid's movie, but it does of all of the live action Disney reimaging of films, which I'm excited for Lilo and Stitch, and I really want them to give me Emperor's New Groove. The rest of them go fuck themselves. But like, give me the ones that are going to be challenging to do.
Yeah,
right. I don't need a shot by shot remake of Psycho. I get it. I mean, I've seen it. It's fine.
Right.
But anyway, Lowery is kind of doing the DWG thing, and it'll be interesting to see where he goes. It does seem like he has more of a tendency to go back to the personal things, and then still get the payday from. And I'll be. Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing about Peter Pan. And when I heard that he was doing a Peter Pan movie, I'm like, I don't think we really need another Peter Pan movie. Okay, fine. But because it's one of those things that's just been done and it usually doesn't do well. And it's going direct to Disney Plus. It won't hit theaters, so it's just going to be there. So, but I am interested in seeing it just because he's doing it.
I was making a list of who's making films like All the Real Girls and George Washington, and his name was one that I came up with. Along with like Charlotte Wells and Raven Jackson.
Right.
And then I kind of got stuck. There's not a lot of...
Right. Well, there's not a lot of... I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think there's a lot of appetite for that kind of quiet...
I'm hungry.
I know. I am as well. I 100% am as well. Another thing, too, like how is Ben Foster not like the biggest movie star in the world? I know he's not like... I don't know.
Have people not seen 3:10 to Yuma?
Or anything he's in. Even he elevates
Hell and High Water.
Yeah, I mean even the fucking X-Men shit that he does. Where I know those movies blow, but I mean like he's really really good in those. Like that fucking.
He's good in everything. He plays a good bad guy too.
Yeah, no, that Justin Timberlake movie where they kidnapped a kid and it was Anton Yelchin and.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
I can't either. He was great in that. He's so good in like just about he is a great bad guy. It's crazy to me that I know he gets a lot of work, but it's just crazy to me that he's just not headlining films all over the place. My last recommended, if you like, for All the Real Girls is 2003's Isabelle Coixet, My Life Without Me, starring Sarah Polley. About a young mother who is terminal, has 2 months to live, and she starts basically living out the life. She starts making a list of things that she wants to do and doesn't tell her family. And there's a love story that's involved with her and Mark Ruffalo. It's really beautiful. And that's a kind of a heart-wrenching film.
So I went more of the comedy route with this one, and mine is 2000, directed by Jennifer Goodman with a PH. The Tao of Steve.
Okay, yeah, good call. Good call. That's a movie that like really falls under the radar these days, but that is a good movie.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I called someone a Stu the other day. I'm like, you're not a Steve, you're a Stu. And they were like, what? What are you talking about? This is Donald Logue, right? Yeah. He is, again, this unconventional Lothario. He was like the former, I don't know what, popular guy, head guy on campus.
Right.
And now he's overweight, but he's still pulling chicks, right? Because he lives by this code, right? The Tao of Steve, right? Be Steve McQueen. Be, all of the Steves, right? And don't be a Stu. But then again, he meets he meets a woman. Oh, it's Jennifer Goodman's sister, the actress. He meets a woman, and she makes him want to be better, right? And makes him want to be something different, and that's the tie-in to All the Real Girls. Yeah,
Donald Logue is another one of those guys that. As a sexy big man too. He pulls off that kind of like sweaty. Like in Tao of Steve, he's played kind of more oafishly. It's one of those things where in that movie, the women sleep with him and then wonder why they ended up sleeping with him, kind of thing. But he can pull off an attractive guy if he really wants to. I mean, again, he's not going to have 6-pack abs ever, but he can certainly pull off that look. He had a stint on Law and Order SVU, which I know is silly to say, but where he just plays this guy who's just he's like an Irish, and he goes undercover and I don't know.
Well, you saw him slim down over the years. What was the show that he was? He had a TV show where he was.
Yeah, it was on Fox.
And they were. He was married to. It was very much like slubbish guy married to attractive woman.
Right.
I can't. And with kids,
I'll
and it
never
was
pull the title of it, but
that was fun.
It was a good show. Yeah, it was kind of like in the My Name Is Earl kind of vein of but I mean probably a little brainier as far as their characters go, right?
Yeah.
But always like lovable losers and never being able to break out because it had that. I always forget that guy's name, but the guy who is he's in a lot of Scorsese flicks.
Corgan.
Yes, Michael Corgan. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so go check those films out if you like.
If you can find Tao of Steve. Where did you? I don't even know where that is anymore.
I don't either. I saw this movie when it came out. Again, in 2000, and I keep saying this, but there were 2 indie art house theaters, and sometimes after I got done working, I would just go see what was playing and just. Sit down and watch a movie. Right? And this was one of them. I'm like, what is this? Who's this guy? Whatever. I got, a few hours. And so, I watched it. And
it's one of those art house films that doesn't pretend to be anything like sort of like great message film. It's just a good movie,
It's
right?
just fun.
It's just a fun
Yeah,
movie.
it
It's
is.
just low budget, right? It's
Yeah.
not. There's no great. Like I said, there's no great import. It's just a good time of the show.
But it is fun watching Logue play this big guy who just pontificates about everything. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Let me tell you how I'm this way. And you're like, you're a part-time kindergarten teacher? I mean,
right.
but it's a lot of fun. I hadn't thought about it for a long time until watching all the Real Girls. I'm like, oh, this reminds me of like the Taubes.
Right,
Oh,
right.
cool. All right. Anyway, go check those things out. So next time we'll be talking about the films of Satoshi Kon.
Yes.
Did I say it right?
I think so. I usually end up saying Satoshi Kon, but I mean
Satoshi Kon.
But either way, it's fine. He's not around anymore. I think he'll be okay with however we say his name. We'll get it right before the show starts.
Right. So we're gonna look at what Paprika, Perfect Blue,
Millennium Actress, and Tokyo
Godfathers.
And then we'll also be discussing How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which is just now hit theaters.
A climate change thriller based on an academic paper.
Yes, distributed by the Neon. I don't know why I'm saying this. It's not important at all. It's just I just said it out loud.
It's the Neon distribution arm of climate change.
Yeah, it used to be Draft House Films. Now it's Neon.
Activist.
Fine. Whatever.
Okay.
These are things I say because I just feel like if I don't say them, people won't know that I'm around.
All right. After the Satoshi Kon, we'll get back to David Gordon Green.
No, actually,
we're gonna slip in a special episode on you as well.
We're gonna finish David Gordon Green. Don't you guys worry about it.
We're here for
2025. We'll be done with David Gordon Green.
Yeah.
Right? You double Gers.
But we will give you a special episode with a special guest on Star Wars.
The Holy Trilogy.
The Holy Trilogy. The original, not the other ones that are faux trilogies. I don't know. Okay, let's just shut up. Anyway, so that's what's coming up. And other than that, thanks for listening.
Yeah, keep screaming.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time,